hello, how are you? Thanks very much for joining us this evening. We have another great London branches event from the BCS, British Computer Society, which, as you know, is the Chartered Institute for IT. Our London branches encompass London North, London Central, and London South. So we have a lot of members from those groups here. And if you're not a member of the BCS, I strongly recommend you to join this great forum of community people and IT professionals and so on. It's a great place to be. And this evening, our great place to be is for this webinar, which is for our early careers, excuse me, for our early careers initiative led by Samira Ali. It also relates to our Women's Inspiration initiative because we have two great women to talk and tell you things and answer your questions. The two people I'm referring to are Samira and her guest, who is called Nour. But I have said enough, I think, in terms of the general introduction. What I'd like to do is to hand over to my colleague, Samira. Over to you.
Thank you very much for that, Dalim. Much appreciated. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. My name is Samira. And today I've got a wonderful guest here with us, Nour, who is a data consultant at IBM, and she is going to be telling us more about her role. Please, for anyone who has questions, please type it in the chat. I've already posted something in the chat to welcome you all. Feel free to ask any questions on the chat, and what we'll do is once Nour goes through her lovely presentation, we will get and ask the questions. But that's the format of today. So yeah, it'll be a great session. And so over to you, Nour. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Samira. Thank you, Dalim and David. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to share my journey with you. So I'm going to share my screen to start with the presentation. Okay, so let me know if you can see my slide. Okay, brilliant. So welcome everyone. I'm very delighted to be here to tell you more about my experience in data analytics and consulting in IBM. So in this presentation, I'm going to walk you through the career progression that I have had since I've joined IBM 2 years ago, starting from data analytics into data science. Mostly, I would like to, I would hope that this presentation will inspire you to start with working with data, whether it's data analytics or data science. So as Samira said, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I'll be happy to answer. So just a little bit about me as an introduction. So I'm Nour. I've joined IBM 2 years ago as a data consultant on the associate program. Prior to me joining IBM, I was doing my master's in theoretical physics, which is pretty analytical subject, and also very much mathematical for those people who have done mathematics and physics. And it requires a lot of skills, from problem solving skills and analytical skills. I joined IBM as a data consultant, and 2 years from when I joined it, which was actually last week, I celebrated my 2nd year anniversary with IBM, which is great. I'm also an IBM Quantum Ambassador, and what that means is that I speak to clients about quantum computing, what it does for their businesses, and how it can help them to solve their problems. You can say that I'm a bit biased because I did a physics degree, so I know a lot of quantum, I know the physics behind it as well as the math. I'm an award-winning data consultant within IBM, so I've been recognized as in one of the awards within internally within IBM for the work that I have been doing, which is quite a privilege, and also a testament that all of the work and the experience I have done has been appreciated by other people. I leveraged advanced analytics, so everything I have learned at university and everything I am learning since I've joined IBM has been leveraged in every role that I have been doing. And you will see later in this presentation the different stages and the different roles that I was participating in. And last but not least, I recently won the 100 Women in Tech Awards, which is one of very recognizable awards for the different achievements that I have done. And I just wanted to highlight that while those key achievements and qualifications might open the door to different opportunities that might come, but one key aspect that is quite important is actually apply the knowledge that we learn along the way in every step of the way. So this is just to show kind of there's a distinction between data analytics and data science, and I wanted to highlight here. So data analytics is more of working with the raw data that you try to get insights from. And data science is kind of like the evolution that comes after data analytics, which is more of kind of like the application side of data analytics. So say, for instance, in data in general, we have a data cycle that starts from the collection of the data, the transformation of the data into making it in a way that is digestible and understandable. And then there is a cleansing of the data. So if your data is not fully accurate, you do some cleansing to try to kind of reject the data that doesn't make sense and keep the data that makes sense. And then you do the analysis on this data. And then finally, you do visualization. Some people are very visual, and I wish I was one of them. But I think judging by my physics degree and the path that I have taken, I'm more of an analytical person. A mathematical equation can convince me more of a diagram, but I can't neglect the idea that a visual looks nice is actually better than an equation. So you start off with data analytics, you do data wrangling, which is just, transforming raw data into a way that you can digest it. There's statistical analysis and different ways that or different methods that you can take into understanding that data. And then finally, there's visualization. Now, in doing kind of the transformation into data science, we kind of like move a little bit into computational side of things. So the reason why data science was called science is because kind of it encompasses different sciences together. So starting from mathematics, linear algebra, analytical thinking that comes, say, from physics and problem solving. And then it also combines the computational skills. So you need to be a good, not a perfect programmer, but at least you know kind of the basics of programming. And with those skills, they all kind of combine together to help solve problems. So one example for those is the advanced programming. I'm sure some of you have heard of Python that is used for programming, and it solves a lot of problems. You can take that and you can actually start building machine learning algorithms to help you solve different problems. And when we talk about machine learning, I guess the first thing that comes to your mind is AI, and now there is generative AI and everything that you see with the ChatGPT and the different large language models that is out there. So this is kind of the science behind it, or say the programming behind that, is kind of qualified as the data science. What's important is that when I made the transition from data analytics into data science, is that it's not kind of like a phase one and a phase two. It's more of like I still apply the data analytics principles and the kind of like the way of looking at things analytically. And as well as that, I combine more advanced programming and algorithmic methods in solving those problems. Now, how did my journey within IBM evolve? So this is a timeline to just show you since I joined IBM in October in 2022. I've started as a data analyst. So what you can see on the top are the different projects within IBM. So for people who don't know what IBM does, actually, I didn't know what IBM does before I joined IBM. All I knew is that it has a very big name, but I didn't know exactly what they were specialized in. So IBM is a very big technology and consulting business company. And I lie under IBM Consulting, hence why I have a data consulting title as well. And what we do is that we work with different clients to help them solve their problems. Now, different problems with different clients, they vary, hence there are different projects. So when I first started with IBM, I worked for a client in the energy sector, and I worked as a data analyst. All that I was doing, actually, I was using Excel to try to kind of come up with a model that does some certain calculations to fit into a contract signing. And this is how I started. So kind of like, using Excel in a way that, helps us do certain calculations to fit into the client's objectives. And then I moved into working for the government for a whole year. This is one of the longest projects I have had. And my title was data consultant. And in that project for a whole year, it allowed me exposure to all the different steps or stages that the data goes through. So from the data collection into data transformation, into data analysis, and finally doing the visualization. And under that, you can see 2 or 3 tools that I have used. So Tableau was one of the tools that I have used for the data visualization. So if you want to they create a dashboard that looks nice, then to communicate that to the client, you can use Tableau. Then there's Power BI, which does something kind of similar to that in the yellow. And then MongoDB, which is basically, it's a database that can store unstructured data. And you can then query this data from a tool called Studio 3T. So say, for instance, you have a very big database and you want to collect information about, say, students between the age of 10 to 14 who have completed the maths exam and have failed. So even though that might seem like a very simple request, but actually doing it in kind of like when you have millions of rows to search from, it's quite complex, hence why we need those databases. And during this time when I was working for the government, I also did data governance. And data governance, it's when you kind of define the rules for an organization that tells you, okay, so in order to kind of define a data governance framework, you need to apply those different roles and responsibilities in your team. And as part of data governance, there is Informatica, which is a tool to organize this data. So the data management tool that kind of organizes the data for different formats that it has. And then I moved on to work for Imperial Brands as a data modeler. So most of the work that I was doing for Imperial Brands lies between consulting on the data platform that they have had, as well as doing some data quality refinement and also doing visualization. So what you see is that as a data consultant, you kind of like you go back to tools that you have used before, but you use them for different purposes, which is really interesting because one tool you can't use one tool for everything in one role. And then you can see this a blue kind of cylinder, which is SQL. So it's the structured query language. So if you have a structured database, you put it there and then you query it later. So same in the example as MongoDB. However, MongoDB is for non-structured data. And then I moved on to another project in the energy sector in August 2024. I added here Python, SAP, and Contexa. So I was doing a lot of kind of, even though Python has to be kind of like extended alongside all of that, because I think if you work with Python for once and you know how to create the machine learning algorithm, you can actually you can manipulate kind of the algorithm into making it does whatever task you want it to do. So here, for instance, we were trying to advise the clients on the best ERP platforms that solve their solution. And Python, SAP were one of the things that I have considered. I've done also other research for other ERP platforms. And ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. So for instance, if you're a company, a very big company, and you have different data sources, the processing of the data, it all happens within a platform. And then a very good analogy to that is that, say, for instance, you have your body. Your body is, say, a data model. Your nervous system is basically an ERP platform, which is basically the processing of things and how things happen. And then I moved on to my final role as a chief data scientist that I'm also working in the energy sector. In fact, I'm working for the Scottish Power in Glasgow. So I'm up in Glasgow every other week, which is really interesting. And what we're trying to do is that now with the, the adventure that with AI has, brought to us in the past few years, we're trying to create an AI enablement hub. And in order to do that, what I'm doing is that I'm trying to create guidelines that is from a data science perspective that allows Scottish Power to be fully AI ready. And the tools that we're using for that, so AWS and Azure, which are, they have different services, actually hundreds of services, each one of them, that allows you to do certain, different queries depending on what you'd like to do. Python is still there. Python, I can't leave Python anywhere because it does a lot. And yeah, we're also doing a kind of formation of use cases. So say, for instance, I would like to build a use case where that allows me to upload a document and run some queries on that document. For instance, tell me the address of that person or tell me how many people have signed up to that. So building that requires a lot of programming, LLMs, and also you need those services to implement it. Now, this is kind of just a journey of what I have had in IBM. Now, what are the best advice to kind of give to people who are interested in data? And mind you, you don't need to have a specific interest in data, whether analytics or science. You can always just start somewhere. So I've split this into two sections. The first one is the tools that you need as a data scientist / consultant. So Jupyter Notebook, it's I think if you haven't heard of it, this is kind of like an interface that you can download. It's web-based and it allows you to run Python queries or programs, and it's very friendly. I use Visual Studio as the standards of one just because I'm very comfortable with, but feel free to kind of, choose different ones and see which one you resonate with the best. TensorFlow, it's an AI model development, so you can import it as well in Python. So there are so many open libraries in Python that you can navigate through. And I really want to stress that because I have had a couple of situations where I was looking for, building a code that does certain things up until the point where I realized actually there's a valuable library that has been, kind of implemented within Python that I can just import and then run a certain query. Spark, if you have a very big, large data and you need to process it, that's the way to go. And Tableau, finally, as I mentioned before, like Power BI, it's a data visualization tool. And you don't need to have an experience in those tools. You just need to get kind of like an understanding of what they are and what's the best way to use them. And then on the other side, I added some other skills. They call it people skills or communication skills. First one is really asking a lot of questions. And it's one of the things that I kind of had to put a rule to myself since day one when I joined university, which was like years and years ago. And I said to myself, I will never be shy. And I used to be the girl that sits in the first row and always raising my hand for a question up to a point where actually I was named on a group chat, the whole group, the question girl. And I'm so proud of that. And you will see that the benefits will actually pay on the way. And then aligning insights with objectives. So one thing that you will realize with working with clients is that one of the main things that you need to do is actually try to understand what is it that they are trying to achieve. And it's something that you probably don't come across at university because at university, you start, you just want to pass exams, you just want to, finish that. That's the objective for you. But when you move into the business side, it's very important that, to consider the client's objectives and then try to align it with whatever solution you're trying to build. And then explaining findings to stakeholders. So I think that's another skill that is quite important, which is how is it that I can, explain my opinions or my solutions to other people. And it's not a something on the checklist that you can just check. It's one of those things that keeps improving. Even I keep working on my communication style, and actually I have on my to-do list a task which is find a way of how you can communicate in a clearer way. And it's so important because It might not come across now to you, but actually you will see that when you communicate with different people who have different ways of understanding the subject, it might just come about there. And finally, staying updated on trends. I think the most kind of example, the best example I can give is what AI has done in the past 2 years. Our review just shifted massively from, focusing on, the normal algorithms that we have into actually specifically AI and how we can leverage it into our advantages in all of the different possible ways. So those are the set of advice or tools and skills that I would say I would recommend if you'd like to start a career in data analytics and science. And yeah, that's all I've got for this presentation. So I'm ready to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that insightful presentation. No, really appreciated it. It was very, very good. So we've got some questions on the chat. What we'll do is we'll take those chat ones first, and then we'll wait for the additional ones that I've got, and then just to help you. But before, so regarding your first things first, let's start with the first one here. So the first thing that somebody asked here was what they said was, they said, "Hi Nour, I'm already a data consultant for a year and looking to start a job searching. Just wanted to check, what did they write? They just wrote, just wanted to ask you, how would you go about mentioning all the different projects and the skills on your CV succinctly without taking up all the spaces?"
That's a very good question. And actually, I was sending my mentor a question if she can help me to update my CV because I needed a second look at it. I think the best advice I would give is that what is it that you are updating your CV for? Is it for your reference? Then for your reference, I would say go ahead and include all of the experiences that you have. But then what happens is that when you apply for different jobs look for different reference or different kind of like special experience that you have. So feel free to kind of like extract the experiences that don't kind of relate specifically to that type of job and do a prioritization to the ones that you think are more important. And it's an advice I got in the past. So your CV is not kind of like a standard that you can apply for everywhere. Actually, the trick is, and the way that people make it through is if they have kind of, if they modify it before applying it to the job and tailoring it to the job description.
Absolutely, tailoring your CV for every single job. I always use the analogy of Cinderella. Like there was only one shoes that fit, right? That specific shoe was for her. So for every job you apply for, it's very, very important. The advice that you gave, that you customize your CV. Yes, it's a lot of work, but gone are the days where you just send 100 CVs and then just hope and wait, because now the issue is we've got ATS, the automated tracking systems. If you don't have those keywords, it will generally kick you out and not give you opportunity even for a hiring manager to see it. So everybody definitely customize your CV. Thank you very much for that, Nour. Okay. We have another good question here, and it said, what are the transferable skills that helped you transition from a data analyst to data scientist?
Mm-hmm. So, talking about the soft skills, the main one is really like being client friendly and approaching, these whatever problems you're trying to solve with care. I think that it makes a lot of difference when that attitude is kind of like radiating from you, and you can't actually work, like it's not that you can't, but within IBM, it's not that you're working on a project alone. You always have a team. So team collaboration is also very important, and having open communication about any of the issues that you are facing on the way makes it kind of accelerate if there are any problems that can be solved. So team collaboration, open communication, being authentic, being your authentic self. I would say, and as much as cliche as it could sound, but really be yourself, because no matter how much you try to kind of like, follow the rules, the authenticity always wins, no matter what. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. And I think the follow-up questions with that one, which you kind of actually touched upon already, which I really liked, the fact, especially the point where you made about being authentic, always be yourself, is true. What are some of the new skills that you've learned in your time at IBM?
Okay, so there are many skills that I have learned, and I can classify them into technical skills and soft skills. So the
Yeah.
technical skills are the ones that I have shared with you, the different programming languages, and also not just programming in general, but also actually being able to understand how programs work, which enabled me to kind of use programming as a tool to solve problems that I could normally solve manually or like by asking someone. And I think that this is quite important in terms of like tools that is like, say, let's say go a bit technical. So for instance, in AWS, which stands for Amazon Web Services, they offer a tool that you can sign up for and then create a knowledge base. A knowledge base is a collection of databases that you kind of import into that. And you can teach a large language model this knowledge base. And then there's on the other side, you can build a prompt library of what all the possible prompts that you can give into this kind of the model. And I help with the build of a use case that actually allows for this kind of interaction. This may be a bit technical, but yeah.
No, that sounds good. Thank you. So basically, your soft skills and your technical skills that you've learned. But it's important, I think, to remind everybody who's watching this as well. You said you've learned a lot of technical skills, so they were able to give you that training, right? Like you didn't start from day one, and they expect you to know everything.
Yeah, not at all. In fact, so I only did an internship when I was at university, and I've done it on semiconductors, quantum dots, and it didn't involve any programming. It only involved doing some kind of experiments in my hands and doing some analysis, but no programming. So programming was one of the things that I was afraid of when I joined. It was kind of a bit of like a taboo. Oh, she's a programmer, but I wasn't, and everyone else kind of was. I mean, I thought. And then along the way, what you actually need to know is just the basics, because right now with generative AI, it provides you with all of the knowledge that you actually need to learn. It's not also just what you need to learn, but also how to learn it, which is more important.
Absolutely. And I'd love to hear more about the learnings in terms of obviously at your job you've got the time to learn, and like I said, learning is very important because there's be things that you'll be learning from your colleagues, etc. So do you get a lot of times to go and work on your personal development?
That's a really good question. So I think one thing that I would say to everyone, bear in mind that when you set yourself a goal, say, oh, from now till 6 months, I want to be achieving this. Be flexible, because what happens is as you grow more and as you learn more, your values change, or not your values as much as your goals change, and the scope of where you want to be going in life change. So do I have time to do self-development? Yes, I do. I try my best, because I do believe that if you are fully yourself and you are kind of feeding yourself with the knowledge that you would like to learn, you're going to be doing your best at your job. It does take a lot of practice to kind of like know when is your peak time at your work, and then balance that down with less time on development, and then go vice versa. So yeah, it does take some time to master.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, so somebody else here asks, and they said, what qualifications, certifications will you need to get into this field? So just a little bit about, so obviously you told us a bit about your background in regards to A levels. Somebody else was asking about A levels and what they did, but yeah, it'll be good to know what are some of the typical A levels. Obviously, like you said, you don't need the degree per se, but it's about learning. But yeah, I'd love to know a little bit. I think people just want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very important point, because a lot of the people that, get hired to IBM to become data consultants, they probably don't have a physics degree or a maths degree. They probably followed a different path. So I think the proof that you can actually learn is as important as if you have the certification already. And actually, in preparation for this session, I have gathered a couple of courses that I'm going to post on the chat now. But briefly, certifications that are kind of, globally known, like the Google Data Analytics Professional Certificate, and there is also IBM Data Science Professional Certificate. So the IBM's one, it constitutes of 12 courses that actually cover all of the different types or sides of data science in general, and all the different data cycles, and it goes into that in depth, and it gives quite a good overview of that. And there are other ones for Microsoft and AWS Cloud Practitioner, just to kind of like set some concepts right. So I'm going to post those in the chat now.
Thank you. Those are great resources. And are those paid? Like, so you just pay a little bit, is it like for the certification, you pay like a couple of, or is it free, the IBM one? Is it?
So they do differ, but what I know is that the ones that are offered by Coursera, if you are still a student, you can get a fee waive for actually attending the course, and a very decent amount to actually gain the certification, which I think around the £30 or something. Which if you for a course of 3 months, I think it's quite worth it. In terms of the Google one, I think it is free unless they have changed it. Yeah, but there's always an option with Coursera for you to audit the course, and you can just watch the course, and maybe like you can spend your money on something that you're more interested in.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. So yeah, those are really, really great resources. Thank you. Okay, so if we go back to the beginning, we'll keep taking questions. There's lots more questions in the chat. But first things first, what made you choose data as a career? It'll be good to know. So like you said, you studied physics, and then you did your internships. Did you do your internship at IBM or was it somewhere else?
So I did an internship within the physics department within my university at Lancaster, and actually, what made you choose data? This might sound very cliche, but actually, data chose me because the internship that I had, it involved the data analysis work, and when I applied to IBM, of course, I highlighted that. I highlighted different experiences that I had. And then during the application process, they picked up that, I have that experience, so I might well be suited to that. And I think during that, they also ask you whether you're interested in data. And I realized at that time that it is actually quite interesting and I can do it, so I might as well just go for it. But I want to highlight just an important point, which is sometimes when you are early at your careers, you might have some limited choices. So try to go with the flow and be open to different opportunities, because maybe you can't, maybe you're not able to do to make any choices at the time, but maybe making a choice and then later learning from it and expanding might open other doors, and that will put you in a position where you're able to actually make choices for something that you are really interested in. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So going back to that then, so let's just say if somebody wanted to get into your field now, what would you say is a first good entry role is? So would that be a junior data analyst? Is there such thing as junior data analyst or something else? What would you say, like a good one to get your foot in the door?
Yeah, so anything from junior data analyst or data analyst, I think that's a good it's a good entry. It's also, a junior data scientist is also a good one. So it's worth noting that different companies have different standards of what they define as junior. And I've been quite surprised that some companies define entry jobs by having a couple of years of experience, which is a bit of a shame.
Yes.
Because it really it limits the opportunities for the people. And if the entry jobs, have a couple of years of experience, so how do we define the, advanced jobs? So so that's why I said that to be open to all different experiences. Now, what is it that you need to do in order to kind of like make a step one to enter a role like data science? I would say there are kind of like two aspects to it. The first one is say, certifications of what you have demonstrate in terms of learning and education. This is like an evidence that you have actually have got the knowledge and you have got the kind of the willpower to get those certifications, because it's not an easy thing. And then on the other side is if you have any other projects on the side, so any experience that you can add to your CV that could actually enhance that. And what's interesting is that if you are look as a junior data scientist, or you're hoping to become a junior data scientist, you don't have to wait for a role for you to have a project. I think you can just start your own project and build a professional portfolio. So there are so many databases that are open source, and you can just kind of extract some data, do like some data visualization or analysis, and you can add that to your professional portfolio. And for those people who don't know what professional portfolio means, it's basically, it's like a CV, but it talks about the different projects that you have completed just alone or within a group. And it kind of like it talks about that in detail. So this is very, very well recognized by companies when you have that, which is really great. This only means that you don't have to wait for a company to offer you that.
That's excellent. And regarding the professional portfolio, how would you recommend people send it, especially when it comes to data? So, for example, you'd have your CV. So most companies ask for CV. Would you say add it to that same CV document or send it separately? Because most places, they just say to you, oh, do CV. I know some people, they put a link on their CV to take you to that project. But the issue that I've seen, I'm not sure if anyone else had that issue, but having worked in recruitment and hiring, because of the ATS, if it doesn't recognize certain things, and certain links, it just completely crosses you out. So how would you say in your industry it's the norm to send that portfolio, like, would you say?
Yeah, I would say to add a section on personal projects within data. And then in that project, you can just like add kind of like a headline saying, I worked on analyzing the number of people that are in the UK and buy houses below. I mean, not as long as that, but basically you can just write a short title. And under that, you can just write 2 sentences of what the project entails. And since you're going to be working on this project, you must have a GitHub repository account. So in there, you can put all of the documentation, and don't underestimate the power of, mentioning such a thing, because even though I had around 5 to 6 experiences in my CV when I applied to IBM, all prior to IBM, apart from the internship. Oh, sorry, I just got like, apart from that internship, but basically, I was grilled in the interview I've had regarding the data analyst work that I had. And I just got out of that interview saying, oh my God, I actually did not, I thought I understood what I've done in the data analysis job, but apparently I didn't. But apparently I've done better than I do. So maybe sometimes we need to be nice to ourselves.
Absolutely, exactly. You did more than enough to get offered that job. I mean, because like you said, you can come out of job interviews and feel a bit critical, but at the end, like you said, they grilled you, but then you came out on top by answering all the questions. So they just got enough out of you to answer those questions, and you were the excellent candidate for them. So you did it. Good. Thank you very much for that advice. Yep. So, and GitHub, you recommend for any aspiring person who wants to get into your field to have a GitHub, right?
Yeah, it's very simple. You can create an account, and also like being familiar with how you can upload different documents and a read document to explain a code that you've worked on. And also there is kind of also a Git work, which is basically the idea that if you and other teams are working on the same code, you can manipulate that to kind of like add a new code, and then you can merge them together. So something also to look up. GitHub is different than Git.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much for that. Okay, fabulous. Okay, let's see what other questions we got. Someone wrote, does a data scientist need domain knowledge to work effectively in industry sectors? And if it is the case, how do you gain that domain knowledge apart from working in those sectors?
Oh, that's a really good question. The industry knowledge is a bonus, but it's not a requirement, and it's not a prerequisite in order to do that. So a data scientist work with data in kind of like an agnostic way. So I can do the job that companies asking me to do in certain situations without actually kind of referring back to the actual industry. So what I'm doing currently in those terms of this documents management use case that I said that I use AWS, creating a knowledge base and prompt library. So I don't actually refer in particular to the energy sector, but it's always a bonus. And all employees are encouraged to do courses on the industries themselves, because it always like provides this kind of like a higher dimension of understanding what's been done.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And the other question here we've got is, it says, what kind of statistical, so somebody asked on the chat, what kind of statistical and technical questions can I expect at an interview? So just generic questions, if there's such things, statistical and technical questions, do you think? So I'm not sure if the person who wrote this is talking about a job that where you've been there for 3 to 5 years or for a junior role, but for the sake of, I guess, the fact that this is an early careers webinar, I think let's stick to early careers webinar. So what kind of technical questions do you think they might ask? Or junior role? So yeah, they ask about a junior role. Good.
Okay, so interesting. So it really depends on which company you're applying to. And the reason why I say that is because I had a technical interview in one of the awards that I was applying for, and it was with the Skyscanner. And I remember we had the technical interview involved a kind of a problem case that they provided us with, and we needed to read that, and then we needed to design how we would kind of write a program using Python in order to actually solve that problem. I can't in particular remember what the problem was, but they just needed to understand if we actually understand the different functionalities of Python. Oh, we import that library, or for instance, we create that class, we build that object, and then we query back that, and then we create a while loop here. So those kind of things can get passed. Trying to think of, in terms of IBM, I wasn't actually asked any technical questions. I was asked more of like if I actually understood what I have written in my CV in terms of the experiences, which is really like provides your CV as your yeah, your book before the interview.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. So hopefully that answers it. Good. Someone wrote, excellent portfolio. What year is your first data analysis job role?
2022 in October 6th.
And that's the first role that you had here at IBM, correct?
Correct, yes, after graduation.
After graduation. So there you go. Yes, after graduation, you were able to nail it. Were you able, was there any challenges, would you say? So let's just say you graduated now, you've got your master's, like you said, and then you were looking for your first role. How did you find the whole application process? Was there any challenges? Did you have to like wait 2 months, 3 months? Because I know sometimes with people, and I think we've got quite a lot of graduates from our early careers, a lot of them say that obviously after they graduated, some of them are waiting months and months and months. So I think any advice for them about obviously apart from being patient and waiting for the right job, but how were you able to continue all these big applications and continue on? And yeah, it would be great to know if you had any challenges or anything like that.
Yeah, so the application process was really lengthy. I think I applied in October, and then I kind of had the final decision made in April next year, which was really long. But I actually I didn't think about the time, because at the time I was doing my master's, and if you've done any masters before, you know that you really have no time to think, especially for theoretical physics. 12 hours revising each day keeps you really occupied. So I hardly thought about the application. Maybe the only time that I was thinking about it was just say the day before the assessment center, which was virtual. And to answer your question of the application process, so you start off with an online application form that you submit, which was the one that you said, Samira, that you have an AI that actually detects and then match you with the HR. So you don't have a real person even checking your resume at that time. And then the next step is an interview. It's a phone interview. They just ask you about your experiences and why you chose IBM. And then the third one is a psychometric test. So the test that tests your IQ, your mathematical thinking, kind of like to just do some games on the computer. And then the fourth one was the assessment center, which was of 3 parts. The first part, we needed to present a presentation that on a use case that they have provided you with. And then the second part was group activities. So show that you are very much, a good team player. So be the one that says, okay, team, we've got 5 minutes. Okay, we've got 30 seconds left. And then the third one was an interview, and it was with one-on-one manager who was actually from the data kind of business unit. And that one, I thought it was going to be technical, and I was revising, but actually it was a bit kind of chill. And then then later that I got informed of the acceptance. So what advice would I give to people who are applying? I would say do as many applications as you can, because what happens is that this is kind of an exponential growth. As you start, it's very slow and it takes a lot of time and it sounds very draining but then when you move on, you actually accelerate faster, because first you will see repetition of the questions that they ask. You will see that you are actually more comfortable in turning up to interviews and talking about yourself and selling yourself. You will see that you're actually very excited for an assessment center, because you know the format and you know kind of like the tick and tricks to make it through. So I mean, be patient, but also do it as many as you can.
Absolutely. And I really like the tip that you gave as well about that group assessment, because we all know those group assessment is full on, because you always have people that might be overpowering. Maybe if you're somebody who's a bit more shy or like a little bit more laid back. So you have to basically be at one role that you can say it's like at least the organizer, and making sure that when the recruiters are near you, that obviously that they can see that what is your impact in that group.
Exactly. And as much as like it is very kind of like, you already know that people are watching you, so you will act differently, but it's just how it works, and they need to they need like some way to kind of assess people. So,
Absolutely, that makes sense. And for psychometric tests, and how did you find that? I mean, I know something now, like for example, there are some platforms where people can practice psychometric tests and all of that. Do you find those? Did you generally always get on with psychometric tests? Any tips for psychometric tests?
Yeah, so I actually never heard of what psychometric tests before I applied to IBM. I didn't know what they were. I discovered them on the day. I think because I did maths at university, theoretical physics, and it's very much mathematical. I was very good with numbers, and maybe I had the analytical thinking. But I think there were 4 out of out of 5 exercises that I think I did well on, and then the 5th one that kind of it tests like different part of my brain that I'm not very strong at, so I didn't do well in that, but it averaged apparently to a good result. But if I would to go back, I would definitely would go and check if there are any websites that actually allow you to do this practice. And yeah, like, don't underestimate that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And somebody else had a really good question. And the question was about your stakeholder. So when you were talking about stakeholders, the communication skills that you use, let me just bring it up again. I think it was about, hold on. I just had it before, but it kind of went off. Is it? Okay, before we go to that question, I've got another question. Someone wrote, is it necessary to learn both SQL and MongoDB since they are both querying tools? Are there significant difference between the two? I don't know.
Yeah, so no, it's not, and there isn't a significant difference between them because they're still a query language. I think moving forward, it's important to kind of like learn one language out of each category. So MongoDB, SQL, you can kind of characterize them in the same cluster, as opposed to programming in Python. So yeah, choosing one would be more than enough. And again, it depends on which company that you're applying for. Maybe this company, if you're applying for a company that specializes in that category, it would be more bonus if you know more about that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And the next one we got here is somebody said, what is the biggest challenge people face in this space? I think that's a really good one. Is it the data quality? Is the data quality ever good? And then they wrote really nice slides, by the way.
Thank you. So the biggest challenge is definitely data quality is one of them. I don't think out of all of the projects that I was working at, I have not had a single one that has, good data without actually going through the data quality. And for people who don't know what data quality means, it's a set of dimensions that you actually run your data through to cleanse your data and make it look better. So one of them is accuracy, which is, making sure that your data is accurate. One of it is completeness. You don't have any missing fields in your data. One of it is timeliness, which is kind of like, the frequency at which the data was collected is the same. So one of the biggest challenges is definitely the quality of the data that we receive, as well as the availability. So a lot of the data that we actually require might not be available due to, certain companies, they didn't think that this data was valuable. So that's another issue that we have. And yeah, that's all I think.
Thank you for that. Okay. So we've got the question now back. So somebody wrote, please explain, they wrote, thank you for explaining the findings for stakeholders. What techniques and what did you do to improve your communication skills? Have you got any tips?
Yes, I do. And I welcome anyone who has any tips as well. So communication with the stakeholders, so any clients that we communicate with. The first one that I would say is really having open communication and having the initiative to initiate that, conversation. And what I do is that I always try to kind of like really be very open about anything that I am facing. So, for instance, today, my client, I was quite struggling with kind of, one of the tasks that I was doing. And I dropped him a message just to say, hey, do you have just 15 minutes of your time? I would like to just, run something by you. And I know it might sound very simple, but it's one of those things that when you actually go through it, you think, well, I should be doing work for them and I should be getting this done. Why am I taking 15 minutes of them so we can clarify things? But actually, it doesn't work like that. We jumped on a call and we stayed for 45 minutes, and I can't say enough how useful that was. And it was kind of like a two-way actually benefit because he clarified his objectives and I clarified what I'll be working on and what I thought that the task was. So this open communication and showing the initiative, I think we do kind of react differently when we see someone who's really interested in, like, I would like to find out more about this. There's a lot to tell about this, so always be curious and ask questions. Yeah, and another thing I often think of, there was another point, but it slipped my mind. When I think about it, I'll say it.
Come back to it. Exactly. We can circle back to that one. Excellent. Okay, so we've got another one. So somebody said here they are what else we got here? So somebody was asking about data engineering basis. I've got quite a few questions actually. So somebody wrote, what is the difference between data analytics and data engineering? Is data analytics the new data engineer?
Really, really interesting. So there is a lot of titles, and I think like unless you actually start to get grasp of what happens in the industry and in the workings with those different kind of categories, you'll be able to see the distinction. So we have data analytics, which is working with raw data to try to kind of deliver an insight from that data. Then you have data engineering, which you can think of as you're trying to build pipelines so that your data can interact through those pipelines, which is, can be like from the data collection, how the data is processed, and then how the data is kind of analyzed after. And then you have data architecture, which is basically for any data platform, you need an architecture. So you need an architect that actually like draws the whole diagram for the full data cycle so that the engineer can actually build it. And then you have a data modeler, which is the same as, doing the visualization of the data. Then you have a data scientist, which is basically a collection of kind of like the analytics side, the programming side, and kind of like mashing them together to do some AI machine learning algorithms. So yeah, that's the difference. I went a bit beyond the question, but I think it was needed.
It was well needed, exactly, because now I even know what the difference is now that you've told me, you've explained it in such a way that I'm able to digest it as well. So that's great, thank you. Okay, so somebody else now also asked, so we had a question from from a master's student, but the questions just keep leaving the chat. I don't know, like they just keep moving. Okay, well, maybe we'll start with this one actually. So somebody wrote, I'm currently looking into a career change. I'm currently working in a laboratory-based job, but my BSc masters are of an analytical background. Do you have any tips for anybody wanting to get into that field? I know you touched up on it previously. So for somebody who's already has transferable skills in their laboratory job, what advice would you give for them, please?
Yeah, that's really interesting because I know one of my colleagues actually, she worked as a associate researcher. She was just starting to do her PhD in healthcare sciences in KCL, and then she moved to become a data analyst or a scientist within IBM. So my advice would be like, first, get familiar with the different tools that you could be asked of. So the ones that I have shown on the screen, because that gives you like kind of like the first level understanding of pretty much the most thing that you can be asked about. And also like question yourself if, you will be interested in actually doing data analytics, from like moving from laboratory work into doing analytical jobs. And don't underestimate these skills, even though they might be different, but a lot of them will be transferable because you're going to be faced a lot with kind of like problem solving skills, things that require this analytical thinking to be applied. So that's for the tools. Maybe communication is really key. So try to attend maybe master classes or any courses that, maybe face-to-face courses, because just another testament that you're able to communicate your ideas. Proof learning. So when you show a certification, it's not only a proof that you've achieved that certification, but also that you are able to do that certification on your own. Yeah, that's what I can think of.
Fantastic, thank you. And the last questions now, because it's coming up to 7:30. So the last question here we've got here, somebody wrote, as a third year BSc data science student, what are some good databases and projects to work on and showcase for my portfolio? They wrote, I'm wanting to develop a good GitHub portfolio before applying for internships that I'm hoping to collaborate with for my thesis. Is there any advice you could please give me in regards to getting internships? And I know you touched upon that, so maybe the person didn't hear the first part, but what would you say for somebody looking for an internship? And obviously, without going into specific projects, it'll be just an idea to showcase. Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of the projects, there isn't like really some good projects, and there is like, non-good projects. I think any project that you can showcase your skills, whatever you use, is quite good. And I wanted to say one point about mentoring, actually, which is there is a website called ADP List, and it's
we can put it on the ADP list, yes, please.
ADP List. I can put that on the chat. So this website, it's a platform that actually they can mentor people. There are a lot of mentors that you can find there, and they can mentor you. So I started building a professional portfolio, and I found a mentor there who is also a senior data scientist, and I was very much interested in actually building that. So that's kind of like a starting point. Don't think about what would be the best project. Just think about what skills do I have now that actually I can start off with that project that will accelerate the process of actually getting, some good progress in that project, and then I can add it on to my professional portfolio. So, and one point about the internship, I think I can send a link for where you can find the kind of like the open when IBM sends emails for open opportunities for internships. But really, it's open search on like LinkedIn and Google. There's so many websites that offer those jobs, and I think get those email notifications in and apply pretty much every day if if you're looking for a job, because finding an internship or a job, it's kind of like you get a Gaussian type of graph where the ones at the top is like the ones that you get in, you need to apply to many so that statistically speaking you can make it through. And so
Absolutely.
I'll find the links for the opportunities in IBM and I'll send it in the chat.
Oh, that'll be great. Thank you. Yes, and the API mentorship program. And actually, you've answered one of the questions that I had. Actually, there was going to be. I know I said that was the last question, but there was going to be a last question, and that was, where do you recommend to find good mentors? So that really answers that question, because I think people always struggle to find somebody to support them, especially when it's early career. So somebody like who can give them ideas or just put them in the right path and stuff. So that's definitely something to consider. And I think one other thing that you said previously as well, for anybody also looking for their first role to break into data or any other job really, the networking, and you mentioned that before as well, is important to network and important to ask questions and be curious, because those things can set you apart. Would you agree?
Exactly. Like you need to, like, networking is one of those things that you're not going to see its value until you start doing it for months. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I can connect the dots. And you need to network as if your life depends on it, because it kind of does. And time will prove. I was just going to say just one point about the mentoring. So I do also mentoring. So IBM has a website called IBM Skills Build. And in that website, there are many mentors from within IBM that actually mentor other people. So also feel free to sign up, and it's totally free. Yeah, so it's a good opportunity as well.
Excellent. No, thank you. So yeah, and I can see that you've shared on the link for the careers. So if anybody's interested in IBM careers, by all means apply. Who knows, you might be working with Nour one day, but definitely, yeah, just apply and try your luck. So exactly, that's great. But yes, that brings us to the end of our session now. Honestly, it's been I just really enjoyed every single bit and all the gems that you've shared, Nour. You've shared so many amazing advice for people, and I really hope that people take that on and use that information for the future to put it into practice. But we really appreciate you. Thank you very much, Nour, for that.
Thank you so much, Samira, for hosting. You've been fantastic. And thank you so much for BCS for having me, and for everyone on the call for their questions. Some really good questions there. So thanks.
Yeah, people really did lots of great questions. So what I'll do is then I'll pass over to Dalim, so we can conclude this chat.
Amazing.
I think he had a technical problem, so just wait a few seconds for him to get his microphone on.
Okay, no problem.
I think he got kicked out.
Hello there. Sorry about that. I thought that was really fantastic. Well done, Nour. That was really, really clear and very helpful. And likewise, Samira, your questions really led us into a whole lot of areas, far more than I'd expected to go into. But there's one general area which I should ask about, which is we've talked about data, and that, of course, was the focus of this session. But these days, so much of the time, we're talking about AI as well. So, Nour, I mean, are these two completely separate streams of career, or can one lead to the other really easily?
Well, all I can hear is that, Dalim, you're inviting me for another session on AI. And I love that. So all I can say, so your AI would be just as good as your data is. So AI and data are very much interlinked and they can't be separated. So tune in for the next session.
Great answer, Nour. Great answer. And my AI is really poor, so I'm looking forward to that session. So thank you very much to Nour, to Samira, to David, and to you I hope you've enjoyed the session as well. Goodbye for now.
Thank you, everyone.